So today is Laab Duchen, one of the holidays or holy days that we observe on the Buddhist calendar. And this commemorates the Buddha descending from heaven. And in particular, it makes more sense in context that the Buddha had gone to the heaven to teach his birth mother, Queen Maya or Maya Devi. And she had taken rebirth in the heaven, so as a deva, after giving birth to the Buddha. And a few years after his enlightenment, to repay his mother's kindness, he went up to the heavens and taught the Dharma for 3 months during the rainy season. And so what we celebrate is that he came back. He didn't just stay in the heavens, he came back and then taught the disciples there on earth the Dharma for many, many years after that. So on this day, we can do many different meritorious practices, and it being one of our holy days, the idea is that whatever merit we do is multiplied by a massive amount. And different websites seem to add different numbers of zeros, and I still struggle to think of merit as something that is purely quantitative, such that you can put it in an equation. But the idea being that by this being one of these very auspicious days, if we do our normal practice, great, that has even more positive potential to it than normal, or we could engage in special practices. And on the website and in emails that people are getting from different Buddhist organizations, of course, many different practices are recommended, including making offerings, different practices of generosity, simply doing special pujas, or making special dedications. So when I was thinking about this story, I realized that there was a certain aspect of this origin story to Laab Duchen that struck me and realized that I was missing a part of it. So often when we talk about the Buddha's mother, we're sometimes talking about Maha Prajapati Gautami, the Buddha's stepmother and aunt, who raised the Buddha after Queen Maya had died, shortly after the Buddha's birth. And I don't know what it's like to grow up without a birth parent. I was very fortunate to have both of my parents loving me and caring for me. So when I think about the kindness of my mother, I in fact think about, that great birthday party she threw for me in 5th grade and how she cared for me when I was injured and all of the things that I can literally remember. But when Shakyamuni Buddha thought about his mother, and of course he was a Buddha, so he had omniscience and knew a lot, but you know, his so if it was me and my mother had died a few days after I was born, she still would have been very, very kind to me in that she had carried me for many months, and while she was pregnant, taken care of herself and done whatever she could to keep me healthy. And I know some of the stories of what my mother gave up and what my mother did to be as healthy as possible while she was pregnant. But that doesn't make as deep of an impact on me as the things that I directly remember. So I was thinking about that idea of being thankful, having gratitude for the kindness of those we have benefited from, even if we can't directly remember it. And what also came to mind, based on some of the chanting we've been doing with our beautiful Chinese instruments, is this idea of praying for our ancestors. And this is something that comes up often in the Chinese tradition that I've seen firsthand. And it seems like in many traditions around the world, not just Buddhist, but indigenous cultures and pretty much anything that wasn't coming from the Abrahamic religions or coming out of Europe, there's a lot to think about our ancestors after they've passed away, to really make offerings to them or somehow hold them in mind, these spirits of the ancestors. This idea that here is this family lineage that you're indebted to, even if you don't remember their exact kindness. So that was something that really struck me, that again, when I think about the kindness of my family, I'm thinking about the people I've met. And I can meditate on the kindness of strangers, the people I don't know who are driving my food to the grocery store, but in a way, if I think about my great-great-grandparents, to me, they're just strangers. I don't know anything about them. And so this was something that really struck me, that so much of the world, and I know for some people in this room, you probably grew up with that idea of really thinking about your ancestors and having gratitude for them. And it's something I really have no connection with. So as a little special practice to cultivate that open-hearted love and compassion for others, and especially to recognize that there are all of these beings who have not just been our parents in our past lives, but parents through this whole lineage of people that we genetically come from, and that we've known them in many different contexts. I thought to lead a little bit of a meditation thinking about the kindness of some of our ancestors. And then we can really dedicate the merit that they all have a good rebirth in whatever life they're in now, and that we can, as we think about strangers as well, see that connection. So for me, I think this would be helpful since I realized I have so little connection to the idea of ancestors. And again, recognizing that, in this way, the Buddha was really repaying the kindness of his mother, even though he didn't have that direct memory of her, except for the fact he was a holy being who was omniscient. So, okay, quick, yeah, my story breaks down there a little bit. So quick meditation. So, bring to mind a grandparent. I think most of us know one or more of our grandparents, had the ability to meet them and experience their kindness. And for me, when I think about my grandfather on my father's side, I just immediately have a warm-hearted feeling from his humor and kindness. And then try to think about that grandparent's parents. I don't know their names even. But how did they raise that grandparent of yours? How did they care for them 100 years ago, 120 years ago, whatever it would be for you? What hardships did they go through such that that child could have a happy life, potentially during the Great Depression or World War I or earlier? How did they model love and kindness so that that child would learn to be kind and loving themselves? And where had they learned to be loving and kind themselves? And so have that heart connection with this lineage of people who have loved their children, cared for them to the best of their ability, and taught them to be kind and to care for others. such that we are at this long line of people, this stream of kindness flowing through the centuries, linked genetically, but most importantly in passing on how to have a kind heart. Even if we don't know their names or what countries they came from, we've benefited from them. And now they've taken rebirth in other forms around us. Possibly humans or animals, devas, or in the lowest realms. We can make the firm determination that we will take all of the good qualities that we have inherited from them and grow them until we can be of benefit to them wherever we find them. And of course, meditating on the kindness of others, whether they are friends, family, or strangers, alive now, or figures from the past, is a practice we can do any day. But how wonderful that today all of these beneficial practices that we engage in, whether it's our normal practice or something special, may that merit be multiplied many, many times. And may we then dedicate that merit for the enlightenment of all sentient beings.